Final hour of today's edition of the Chad Hasty Show. News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Now, see, some people on the text line are already hoping that the Texas Senate is going to outlaw scooters. No. They're not making it legal to throw them in lakes or set them on fire either. No. Some of y'all have a deep hatred for those scooters. Man. 770-5790, 1-800-687-0790. The text line always open where you can text in at any time, 806-680-2790. Our next guest here on the show, and this is a brand new company, brand new media outlet here in Texas. Former state senator and the current founder and CEO of the Texan News, Konni Burton, joining us back here on the Chad Hasty Show. The last time we visited with her, she was state senator. Now, founder and CEO of the Texan. Konni, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on your new venture. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea to start the Texan.
Okay. Well, obviously, the election, gave us a different result than what we were expecting and what we were hoping. And this is something, obviously, on those of us on the right side of the aisle have been very frustrated with for a very long time. Media is generally fairly hostile to the worldview of those of us on the right. And, we, again, have been very frustrated with this for a long time. My husband has been kind of curious as far as the business model that media uses. And so he's been thinking of it from that perspective for a long time, and he and I have been talking about it. And although this was not something that we ever planned on doing, but because, as I mentioned, of the what happened in the election, we started talking about it seriously. And realized that, nobody else is entering this market that is very void, right? There's a huge void in it right now. As far as we're concerned, most of the media, if not all, in Texas caters to one half of the population. And there is a whole other half of the population out there that has a different worldview, sees issues from a different perspective, and doesn't really feel like they're very respected from the news media. And so we decided to get into this arena now. And I'll tell you, the response has been fabulous, as we knew it would be, because, as I mentioned, we know there's a void, and so we wanted to enter this market.
Konni, when Breitbart, first launched the Breitbart Texas, and I think a lot of people thought, okay, you're going to have a lot of statewide stories, and it morphed into the border issues, is what it kind of morphed into, which is great because there's a whole lot of border stuff that needs to be covered. But I think it did leave that void maybe of a need for a more of a like you said, a right of center news outlet that's out there. How do you make that successful? Because you've got well established media outlets from all across the state out there. You're going into uncharted territory. You're going about this on a subscriber based model. You're doing things a little bit differently. How much have you planned this out, and how do you make this thing work in the state of Texas?
Right. Well, like I mentioned, we have actually, my husband's really, really, really thought about this for many, many years. This isn't something that we just, created we created the venture in a few months, but the actual business model we've been thinking about for a very long time. So, as you mentioned, I tend to think that, I loved Andrew Breitbart, God rest his soul, and was so happy when that came into being. But as far as I'm concerned, it's become more agenda driven. I'm not speaking specifically, let's say, on the border issue type articles. I'm not speaking specifically to that. I'm speaking in a general sense. And I think that's what most of us are tired of in terms of media, very agenda-driven. And while I stated earlier, we are unabashedly right of center. That doesn't mean that we're agenda-driven. We just have a different perspective. And again, maybe on the border, for instance, since you brought it up, we think more of it in terms of safety and security of Texans, the rule of law, those kinds of issues. Whereas some on the left would write articles only from the perspective of those trying to get into or come illegally into the United States, which is sometimes and have a kind of a subliminal, if you don't look at it from this perspective, you must be racist kind of attitude. And that's what I mean by, it's kind of hostile to our worldview. But anyway, sorry, I meant to speak specifically to the model itself. So we are subscription-based. And because when you look at basically the two models that are out there, one is the nonprofit, which is donor-driven. We've got left-of-center media's operations that you can tell by their donors who they are, and they're certainly left-of-center. And so, of course, they're going to cater their news, the type of reporting, the type of stories, the language they use is going to be more, left-of-center to appease those donors that they have. The other model is advertising-based, and I will tell you, it is. I've spoken to media people all over the country, and they will tell you, as we know, it is unsustainable. The advertising-based model is absolutely unsustainable. But not only that, it caters to advertisers and what they want. The clicks and clickbait. It becomes more. What am I trying to say? Articles, I guess. Articles that are geared more toward content. That's the word I was looking for. It's content that's more geared toward clickbait for advertisers. So why we're going to the subscription-based model is because this is going to be reader paid for, reader focused. We're not going to have pop-ups, ads. It's clean, quality content that just produces the facts. I believe in people. I believe that when people are presented with the facts, that they can make up their own minds. And we don't need clickbait with sensational headlines. We don't need opinion telling everybody how they should think or what they should think. We just think that we want that we present the facts and people can make up their own minds. And that's what our model is.
Well, okay, and so you got the Texan.news. That's how people can read. What's your focus going to be? Is it going to be things that are happening in Lubbock? Is it things that are happening in Dallas, or is it mainly going to be focused on overall legislative issues?
Probably currently overall legislative issues, obviously we're in session, so that's a big deal. And we're focusing first and foremost on that, right? And then as we get out of session, all the campaigns that are going to be going on, but we're going to stay Texas focused. So, yes, we are going to talk about candidates that are running for president that live here in the state of Texas. We are going to be talking to our U.S. senators and our congressmen and women that are from Texas. Everything that has to do with Texas so that Texans can have the information they need to make, educated votes at the ballot box. Now, we are going to get into specifics in different regions of the state, but from the outset, we're going to be more focused on overall Texas issues. But we're going to slowly but surely get into more specifics in the regions throughout Texas as well. Visiting
with Konni Burton, the founder and CEO of the Texan News. The Texan.news is her website, and the team's website, where you can get all the information about the new news organization here in Texas. Konni, as you know, and I'm sure a few people have asked you this, either privately or as you're going around and introducing people to this new organization. A lot of folks use media as a springboard to jump either back into politics or jump into politics. Do you plan on running again in the future?
Now, that's interesting because you are actually the first one that asked me that question in that way. That's interesting. I did get the question. Mark Davis asked me if I was planning on running again. Here's the deal, and it, I'm sure it sounds like something everybody expects a politician to say, but I didn't expect to run for office when I, was an activist, right? I had no intentions of running for office. When I was in office, I had no intentions of starting a media organization, and now I own a media organization. So I don't really know what the future holds. I will tell you, though, that I am certainly open to running. I'm not planning on it right now. My focus right now is this venture. I think it's needed. I think it's desperately needed in the state of Texas, and so that's where all my efforts are. What the future brings, I don't know. I'm not saying I am. I'm not saying I'm not, because I don't know where I'm going to go in the future. I really don't.
Let me ask it back to your website, and then I'm going to then I want to ask you some questions about the legislature. Okay. Are you going to have editorials? Are y'all going to be? I know you said that y'all were not going to be, as far as the news goes. There's not going to be an agenda-driven news story. But what about editorials?
I'm really not planning on it at this time. We continue to discuss it within the team. We have differences of opinion on that, not really strongly. I mean, I really don't. I mean, my vision is not having opinion at all, just straight factual information. I think we've got enough opinion out there, and frankly, right of center, that's all I see. Is opinion. And while we need that, I'm way okay with it. I don't have anything against it. I just think that we don't need any more of it. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to stay to just straight reporting of the facts, let people make up their own minds.
All right, well, now I'm going to ask you your opinion. So you better get ready for it.
I'm always willing to give it, Chad. I'm always willing to give it. You know that.
Absolutely. And we are visiting with former state Senator Konni Burton. How do you think lawmakers are doing in this session? How do you think things are going?
Yeah.
See, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's the deal. I am cautioning everyone, right? Because I do know, and it's been said by legislators, and I do know that this is true. Lots and lots and lots and lots of things happen at this time of the legislative process. I mean, things are flying. You never know what, in the end, any particular legislation is going to look like until the very end of the session. Particularly, and of course, I'm talking with the property tax legislation, school finance, and property tax. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people talking. While I appreciate people being frustrated, I'm talking about activists, people who are looking for property tax relief. I appreciate that they are getting nervous and frustrated, but they need to kind of, just gently and respectfully remind their House reps and their senators that they would, that they need property tax relief, and not to get too upset yet, and I say that with caution even, because I don't know what's going to come out with, but I do know there's so much rumbling out there that if Texans do not get the needed property tax relief, I'm very, very worried about the 2020 elections. I will tell you that. But at the same time, now is not the time to panic, but to just remind your legislators respectfully, that this is something that they elected them on, and that they expect them to follow through with. And if that doesn't happen, then they can, use their voices at the primary ballot, right? But I don't want anybody to get too angry yet, because the end of the session is, even though it's coming up quickly,
a lot can happen.
Exactly. Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah, a lot can happen. Konni Burton, CEO and founder of thetexan.news. You can go and visit thetexan.news today. Konni, thank you very much for joining us today, and I'm sure we'll visit with you and your team down the road.
Thank you so much, Chad. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. That's Konni Burton, CEO and founder of thetexan.news. We'll take our break. When we come back, your phone calls and more.